All right. Don Ranni, thanks for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. So you are actually the guy that I spoke to when I was thinking about getting into real estate. And you're partially, in fact, the reason that I'm sitting here today is because of you. So I think it was important to, kind of share with people, a little bit about that process and,
Okay.
kind of how we met.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a little bit on your background and, how many years you've been doing this and, dive into a few topics. So how long have you been into real estate?
Going into my 12th year. here in
12
Halifax,
years.
Yeah.
And are you originally from Halifax?
No, originally from Cape Breton.
Cape
Came
Breton.
here in 2005. I moved to Halifax and I got into real estate 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
Right on. And I see you're pretty fairly decorated. You got the chairman's top 1%, voted Halifax one of the top realtors in Halifax.
Yep.
Dog owner, dad, and recently you guys put together a team with you and your business partner.
Yeah. My business partner, Lori Hennessy, last year, beginning of the year, basically 12 months ago, really, we decided to team up and form Elite Realty Group. And last year was a great year.
Awesome. How did you find that transition? I know, like when we first connected, you were kind of like solo, doing your own thing. How's been the transition, kind of just looking after, Don Ranni's business versus now having, a team
Right.
and, some other people to kind of look at and support? How have you enjoyed that?
I've enjoyed it. It's a lot more responsibility and back end work.
Yeah.
Because you have employees and you have all kinds of things you need to do, and then you have team members. So I think it's good, though. I think it keeps my skill set up when I'm working with new agents or agents on the team and developing in that manner. So I did enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say? And, for a new realtor, and for people that are listening, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, like I'm in my second year of real estate, trying to do it kind of like you, kind of doing it on my own. Now, what would be some of the benefits? Like if we're looking at, inside of the real estate industry and new realtors, like what would you say would be the biggest benefit to joining a team like yours?
So there's different business models for teams. I think that's the first one, is to figure out what you want. Are you looking for mentorship and support? Or are you looking for a team that just gives you leads and sends you out on your way? Or are you looking to be part of something? So I can say for myself and Lori, because we were kind of individual agents, we wanted to kind of be part of something like a family and put something together and build something out together. So that's why we did the team. And I feel the biggest advantage for us is kind of the mentorship and leadership that we provide to new agents when they join the team.
Awesome. And you guys currently have how many members on the team right now?
Well, there's only three of us.
There's only the three. So
There's
Lori.
myself, Lori, and Megan.
Right.
On the team. Megan was her first year last year in real estate. She did really well.
Right.
And we're looking to expand the team, but probably somewhere through halfway through this year, we'd look at doing something like that.
Awesome. Yeah. Have you heard anything much, switching gears here, interest rates? Everybody's always wanting to talk about interest rates. And I know we're not lenders or mortgage people, but have you heard about the latest increase coming Jan 25th?
Well, yeah, I feel they will hit us one more time with an increase. But then I feel they're going to do decreases over the next 12 months.
Yes.
I feel they have to. And one thing I look at is when variable rate and fixed rate are similar, that usually is an indicator to me anyway, that they want you to lock in because they are going to drop the rates.
Right.
Because variable should be cheaper than fixed. And
Right.
where they're pretty similar right now, doesn't really make sense. So why would you lock in right now if you go fixed at the same price? So
Yeah.
I feel we'll see some decline in interest rates over the next 12 months.
So, and again, I guess this is kind of maybe industry specific, and for people that don't know, variable and fixed rates are driven from different banking products. So
Right.
we got the prime rate that drives the variable, that's driven by the overnight lending rate from the Bank of Canada. And then for those that don't know about the fixed rate market, that's derived from the bonds market where the bank invests their money. Why do you seem to think that we're kind of neck and neck? Is it just the nature of, what we're doing to combat inflation? Is that not quite doing the job it's supposed to be doing? And that's where we're kind of losing faith in that, and that it's kind of shifting over to that bonds market where the fixed is becoming potentially more attractive.
Yeah, similar to that. I just feel with so many rate hikes in a row, I think we're at 7 or 8 rate hikes.
This would be the 8th if they do the
yeah. So I mean that's excessive in my opinion. Like they said before the rate hikes they weren't going to do it, and they put a lot of people in some precarious situations, leveraging themselves based on lower rates, and then they just continued to raise them. And I know they got to combat inflation, but I think we've gone far enough on that, and it has to dial back in. Just the markets, in all the markets, are seeing effects of all this. So it does have to come down a bit, I think.
Now, are you even seeing and you'd probably have a bit more insight on this, are you even seeing some sellers pull back on listing their homes right now because of the hesitancy on the buyer end? Or are people still buying and selling their clothes, and you look at Viewpoint, stuff still turning and burning?
Yeah, it's hard to get statistical based on the last 60 to 90 days because we're historically the slowest time of the year, right? So running stats and pulling numbers in December is hard, but I feel a lot of people are going to come to the market now with inventory to sell in February. I've had a lot more calls over the December month into January from people wanting to discuss listing their home than I have in previous years. So usually the way my business works, my clients just call me up and say, "Hey, Don, we want to sell the house." And it's usually in a pretty short period of time. This year seems to be people calling to prep, 2-3 months out, which is irregular for my business, which is probably common for other realtors. But in my experience in business, it's not as common. So I feel this year we will see a kick up in inventory.
You think?
Yeah.
Because we're still under, I think we just released our numbers. We're still quite a bit under 600 total listings on the market for year to date December anyway.
Yeah,
2022.
I feel by March we'll be close to 900, maybe even 1,000. Yeah.
And in your opinion, and this kind of goes back to, I've seen a couple of realtors post, tenured realtors too, which was surprising, advertising that we're in a balanced market. What do you say to that?
I say balanced in reality
is 6 months,
but not balanced in mathematics or theory.
I'm all numbers.
Yeah. So if you just look at the numbers, you would say we're in a strong seller's market.
Right.
But because the buyers have hibernated and are take a little bit longer to make decisions, agents probably feel the effect of, okay, it's balanced. But I mean, again, houses are still selling fairly quickly. They're not sitting on the market like 2015, 2016. You'd have houses on the market 4 or 5 months, and there was 5,000-6,000 homes for sale.
Well, yeah, and that kind of leads exactly into one of the questions I wanted to ask, was the contrast to I have a client that we were just beating doors down trying to get something in the meat of the pandemic.
Yeah,
and he bought pre-pandemic where you could go in. It was vacant. You could go in. I think they went in half a dozen times before they got the deal done. They wanted to do renos, so they had people come in, do measurements and this and that, and they had a knob and tube thing, so I had to fix that.
Right.
So now I'm trying to get him geared up to get back to Nova Scotia. And, he's like, "Oh, yeah, well, this time works for us and that doesn't." It's like, no, bro, like yesterday's when you should have made the decision. Right. Yeah. You don't have the time that you did when you bought your property.
Yeah.
So, we got to get you kind of a little bit more up to speed and ready to make some just quick time decisions.
Right.
Did you see, when this first shifted, did you see a lot of that, having to adjust when we kind of really got heated up?
When the pandemic initiated and the real estate market took off, I think anyone would be lying if they told you they were prepared for it.
Right.
Of all the, estimates of what was going to happen, no one had the market going up. Everyone had all the big banks, all And that's like everyone was saying the market was
status
going
quo.
down.
Yeah.
So for anyone to say they were prepared for it, buyers, real estate agents, real estate lawyers, mortgage brokers, I would have to say they would have had a crystal ball seeing the future on that one, because we were not prepared for it. And we got into situations that we'd never experienced. Even someone like myself that's been around for, say, 8 to 9 years back then, I was in situations where, never experienced it. Our board had to make certain changes and rules, and there was lots of things happening that everyone had to adjust for. So I think for the first 6 to 8 months, people were playing catch up.
Yeah. And do you think this like explosion in the real estate market here, especially in immediate HRM, do you think this was something that was coming anyway and it got kind of accentuated by the whole pandemic? Or do you think that lens of us being the most attractive place, the safest place to be during the pandemic, I use this with quotations, but you think that expedited the process and we were always going to be in this position, like maybe not as drastic?
I think we've been undervalued here in Halifax for a very long time. And I think the pandemic put the spotlight on that. And some, savvy investors and people that were like, I can live a much better life here, free of a huge mortgage. And actually maybe people that couldn't buy a home in the city they were in were like, wow, I can get a good sized home here with some land. So I think it highlighted the affordability and undervalue that we had. And then it drove the market price up here in Halifax, which probably hurt local people more than anything on the local first-time home buyer kind of trying to get in sort of thing. But I do feel that we were undervalued for quite a long time here in Halifax compared to other cities across the country.
Yeah. If you look at any of the real estate trend lines and the years, everybody's kind of really grown up and we've kind of remained flat or even kind of dipped down in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Obviously just circling back, to the interest rates, and the massive increase in the appreciation. You're always going to have people that are like, oh yeah, the market's going to crash. The bottom's going out. No, I'm going to sit back. Once you fools just realize you messed up and lost your shirt, I'll get in, scoop things up. Like, what do you telling those people, especially after they've been probably saying it for the last 2 years?
I tell them good luck. I mean, if it happens, I would be very surprised. I mean, it just where we are in Canada and the lessons learned from our neighbors in the US in the 2008 situation there's a lot of safety measures put in place. The stress test is a huge one.
Yeah. That people don't even consider that.
Yeah. It's not fail proof, but I mean, there are things put in place to prevent any kind of crash like that. I mean, if there's a crash, it's going to be like a stock market crash, a housing crash. It'll all be one big thing. And then, it's like anything, it'll go down and come back up. We're not going back down to prices to be low again, what they were 10, 15 years ago. And people are going to, just doesn't happen like that. It never has. So, yeah,
just a prime example for, anybody that's watching that's thinking, oh, these guys are full of shit. Excuse my French, but I just got back from the bank and we took a home line so we can eventually buy another property, and we got auto approved. They valued the house at $450 and I still got plenty of improvements to make. So Joe Blow sitting on his computer, his iPhone in the basement saying the market's going to tank. Well, the bank just approved me for another $150,000 off this mortgage, so I don't think they believe it's going anywhere.
And a lot of the narrative now is being pushed by social media, like Instagram, TikTok, and there's podcasts like this, and there's different people out there, and they have their own motivations. A lot of them are just to get views and following. So yes, the more polarizing on the opposite end of things you'll get more views. But I mean, if you just look at things historically and how trends go, I feel safe and confident in the market. I mean, I'm going to sell my house this year, and I'm going to buy a house this year. So I have complete confidence in the market on a personal level. So, when I'm talking to my clients, it's the same thing. I tell them the same thing. And, if you look historically, the best time to buy was always 5 years ago.
Right. That's what they say 5 years ago.
Second best time is now.
Now.
That's kind of how you have to look at things. And I don't know, there's this quote from Warren Buffett that's like, you shouldn't own a stock for 10 minutes that you wouldn't own for 10 years. And you should look at real estate as a long-term play, not a short-term play.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people too. It's like, oh, what about these people paid 30% over and they're going to lose their shirts? It's like, well, maybe if they took a variable, but if they locked in when it was like sub 1%, they're probably going to dodge this pretty easily.
Yeah. And another thing to consider there with rates and that, and I know we're probably beating this horse to death right now, but if you pay 5% interest right now on a house that you get for asking, and you compare that to something, say a year and a half ago, that someone paid 2% on that they paid $100,000 over,
right?
Probably balances out.
Yeah,
when you're thinking long term.
They got short memories.
Yeah. So I feel, my first mortgage I got was 7.5% interest. My dad had a mortgage in the 80s with 19 point something interest. So, interest rates go up and down, and this to me is not out of the norm. I've been through, 7.5 was the highest I saw, and 1 point something was the lowest. So a 5 is, almost in the middle there. So I feel it's a fine place to be. I'd love it to be around 3.5.
Yeah, that's where it was when I bought.
Yeah, I think that's a great affordable price for Canadians. That's where I would like to see it. I think we're going to end up at 4 by the end of the year, halfway through next year. But
that wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, might end up at 6. So don't hold me to anything.
Yeah. Hey, right. We don't have a crystal ball, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I can attest to, like, I've been knocking on some doors of some people I've done business with in the past, not in real estate, but a past business. And I've got a pretty good relationship with a few of them, and they are a bit of an older demographic. And anyway, I was having a coffee with one of them I visited, and I was just asking them what they think of the rates and everything. And one lady just piped up. She's like, listen, when we bought our house, it was 21%.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have enough money to like turn the lights on.
Right. So
all these young kids crying about 5.5%, like, what do it's either you want a house or you don't. It's just, we did it. We survived. They're still in the same house they were in for 35 years.
Yeah. And rent's 100% interest. So.
Man, you took the words right out of my mouth. Anybody that tells me they hate interest and the cost of borrowing and they're renting, buddy, you're 100% interest.
Yeah. So
here's your medicine.
Yeah. And it's all lifestyle.
You didn't beat anything.
Whatever people want to do and how they want to live is up to them. But
that's absolutely.
People want to be in the home owning position. There are ways to get there. So
yeah. Would you think when people use maybe rates or the cost of this or the cost of that, and obviously it's an expensive purchase, but I think fear is most of what's holding a lot of people back.
Yeah,
it's a fairly daunting purchase. I know when I bought, and we bought this place well before COVID, and people probably it was $214,000.
Right.
Like, the bank approved us for like 400. Like, me and my wife we're making nothing relative.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, are you crazy? We can't afford a $450,000 house. They're like, well, that's what you're approved for. I was like, guys, if I bought that, like, the only place you'd find me is in the house.
Right.
I couldn't afford to do anything else.
Yeah.
So, and we bought the place, and, slowly but surely you kind of realize it's, not so bad. And, if you do your due diligence and you don't maybe reach the whole way, unless you really want what you want, then, you can kind of dictate where your situation will end up. On the kind of investment piece, they've recently put in that Canadian foreign buyer ban for the next 2 years. That just flipped that here in January 2023. They say it's a way to produce more long-term rental options for local residents. Now, how do you think that's going to affect our current rapid rate of appreciation? Do you feel that that's going to hurt us and make us less attractive? We're already highest income tax, sales tax.
Yeah. I try to keep my my strong opinion at a simmer on this one. But
right.
Anytime government comes in and shuts down industry or a revenue system for industry, I think it's a horrible idea.
Right.
I don't think the government should be sticking their nose in anywhere. We lobbied against this, and we were I sit on a board with NSAR for the provincial and municipal politicians in lobbying, but we also have a federal one. And this was a big one that was lobbied against, and they did not listen. I feel it's a horrible idea, and it's not very Canadian to shut people out. So I'm like, I get the short-term logic on it, maybe to a little degree, but I think it's a horrible idea. And I don't think government should be shutting down anything that free enterprise is doing. So
can you share anything that was maybe discussed like at the board, like some of the pushback that was given?
Well, I wasn't in the direct talks, but we did have more broader talks on it. And it's just, why would we want to stop, revenue coming in here, right? So when they buy a house, and it's residential that they're against, they'll still let you come in and buy commercial property, but they won't let you buy a residential home. So I look at it kind of down at the lowest of ends would be, maybe I live in Miami and my son or daughter is going to go to Dow, and it's a wiser investment for me to buy them a condo and instead of them renting, especially in this rental market. And now I can't do that. And it doesn't even matter the amount of sales it would be. Any amount of sales it limits is revenue in the pockets of Canadians gone, because they're using Canadian people to buy everything.
Right.
They're using lawyers here. They're using inspectors here. They need maintenance. They're using all local people to generate that. Now, does it give some more opportunities to Canadians to buy? Yes. Do I think that we're at a point where there's zero houses? No. So I don't think it's needed right now. They missed it. They could have done this pre-COVID and locked it down then. That would have made more sense.
Because we weren't allowed to go anywhere. Anybody,
Yeah, and it would have cooled the markets and the prices a little bit. Not that it would have done a lot, but that was the time to do it. When they wanted to do it, when Canadians were like, I have nowhere to live, I got to get out of here, do it then. Now that COVID's over, putting it in now, I think the timing is just off, and it's kind of government-wise. Like, you have an issue, takes a long time to get things done there, and then it's past where I think the issue is. I think we missed where it would have helped the most, would have been in the height of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think they really missed the ball there. And I mean, classic government rollout. We had no information on it until like the very end. And, then they're being more, reactive than proactive. This is something, like you say, maybe should have been looked at earlier on.
And I feel it's to deal with bigger markets like Vancouver and Toronto.
Right.
And I guess, they can't just focus on certain cities or provinces, so they have to do a blanket one across Canada. But I don't see how this helps Cape Breton in any way. No. I don't see how this helps smaller provinces like Prince Edward Island or places like that. I don't feel it helps those places that need those foreign buyers to buy residential properties.
If anything, it just kind of directs their focus to other investment opportunities, and maybe we don't get looked at again.
Yeah, exactly.
So definitely, especially when you look at, the cost of living, interest, and, then they're back in our pockets again. Really, they're taking money away from money that could be spent here. Now it's getting spent elsewhere, which is definitely unfortunate, which kind of leads me into, again, something government related that's been kind of pushed on us. The Airbnb registration that's going in April 1 of this year. Definitely a big touch point for me initially, because I didn't have a ton of info on it. And I shared with you when you arrived that we had just did the big reno.
Right.
And we actually did the nanny suite here. So when I heard that, I was like, holy moly. Like, I just put a substantial amount of capital into my own home, which the whole idea was to use said Airbnb to pay it back. And then, me and my wife had some aspirations to buy another property or two down the road.
Right.
And I thought that just like got crippled all of a sudden because, they put in this legislation. Now, luckily, if you're residing in said dwelling, you can still short-term Airbnb your place. Now, if I own the house across the road and still live here, then I have to long-term rent that. I can't short-term rent that. So,
going to get me back to the whole government putting their hands in free enterprise and entrepreneurs like myself. We don't like that. Like, they should not be doing that stuff. And they're doing it to combat their problem
Not
of a housing shortage.
right.
Right. So I shouldn't be punished because I want to take one of my rentals and make it an Airbnb. I think we should be free to do what we want to do. We're the ones taking on all the risk. The government wants to put stuff like in this. Go build a building. Go build an apartment building. Hire a company to manage it and address your housing shortage if you want. I feel leave us entrepreneurs alone, and that kind of forces people to do things that they maybe didn't want. Like some places, I don't want to have tenants in there. I don't want to deal with the tenant for the year and or multiple years. So it takes away a lot of options for people. Not a lot, but two very significant ones. And I don't like it.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the reasons, and specific to what you're saying, like the length of time your tenants are going to be in your property. And I mean, we've all heard and seen some horror stories of like crappy tenants that you could never imagine being in your place. And, when my wife and I start seriously considering, are we going to take this money and buy another property, or do we invest it in our own? One of the big chats was around the risk of having people occupy said property or properties. And, when I did the research looking at options on what we could do, the big pull for me to go to the short-term market was because it's all tracked. It's all rating-based systems.
Yeah.
Anybody comes in and thrashes my place, like, I got their credit card. Hopefully there's something on it. But anyway, there's still insurance. And at the very least, if they're here for a week or a weekend, or whatever the length of time that you have set up for your listing, they're out at the end.
Right.
Otherwise, you can kind of get, some people engaged to kind of get them out. Whereas I guess the issue that I found when I looked into it is the tenancy board is almost better suited to protect the tenant than the actual property owner.
Yeah. Like the tenancy, I can only speak to the Nova Scotia Tenancy Act. And I hear that a lot, that it's geared more towards the tenant. And I've been in the rental game. I bought my first multi-unit place when I was 21. So I've been in the game.
Is it in Halifax?
It was in Cape Breton.
Still have it?
Not that one, no.
Not that
but
one.
I have others.
Yeah.
I feel it is geared towards the protection of housing. So if me as a landlord is in a dispute with a tenant, the tenant has a lot more on the line because they could be homeless.
Right.
So that's why it's a little bit more skewed, and it's skewed over, it wasn't this strong before. They've made changes to make it a little bit stronger, but I have gone through the process, and it is, I feel, fair if you initiate the process properly and follow the rules in there properly. I find what happens with some landlords is they start to do the process outside of the guidelines of the Tenancy Act, which basically makes their starting from negative in the timeline. So when I hear these horror stories about people been in a house for a year not paying rent, I'm very perplexed to see how that actually happens, because I've had people not pay for a couple of months, and the longest I've ever had anyone in was 90 days without paying. And we started the process. We followed all the rules. There was an actual hearing. We had a guy challenge the eviction, and we went to the thing, and it didn't work in his favor. He was actually could have gotten 60 to 90 days to move out, and he was only given 7. And we had given, and when I say we, myself and my father, we had given this gentleman 1 month's free rent to move out. And the reason we were asking him to leave the property was we had a family member that needed a property. And that was the reason it was initiated. Wasn't the greatest tenant to start with, but it wasn't something we had to get rid of. Rent was sporadic at times, but manageable. But the process did work fine. It just took a little longer, but I feel if landlords out there just follow the guidelines and initiate things timely and document things the way they're supposed to be done, it should work out for you.
Awesome. So let's just take it like an example. and I don't know if you can answer this, but let's just say I'm your tenant. I haven't paid you rent for whatever X amount of time that you felt inappropriate.
Yeah.
You initiate the process to get me out of there. How long of, on average, do you see these things take? Like if it's a real issue and like the place is in rough shape, it's like,
Yeah. So outside of COVID, because there were some rules and stuff there and some health considerations there. I mean, the experience I had, it really didn't take that long. The person didn't pay their rent. So they were, a month behind. Had a couple conversations, a week go by. Might have been a 6-week term of non-payment and a couple failed arrangements made. And then it was just, okay, we're going to start the process. And then from that time, it's probably 60 days in total before they were out. So I think we were out of rent for a 90-day period. You have the carryover, which I'm sure landlords are going to shoot me for this, but that's a cost of doing business. Tenant moves out, I got to prepare the unit for the next tenant. So yes, I'm going to have 4 months of no rent, but 3 months where someone's in there kind of free is the worst I've experienced.
And are all your units long-term or are you doing any short-term?
I only do, I don't have many units right now. I have some houses that I rent.
Okay.
I got away from the apartment game. I like single family homes in an investment point of view. I just feel the people are easier to deal with. And honestly, they don't really want to hear from me. They just want to live in the house and do their thing. I do term rentals now. So it's a fixed term. So it's a 1-year fixed term.
And
now.
they got to renew. Like you have to approve it. There's no like you roll this over and we're month to month and frig that.
So all my and when I say all mine, I don't have that many, but they're on fixed terms.
Yeah,
and I just feel it's safer. And if you want to do something with that property, like sell it or move into it, or it gives you more flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would say that people looking to rent single detached residential homes turn out to be better quality tenants potentially than.
Not quality, just less headaches for me. And I'm just in a point in my life I don't want as many headaches.
Sure.
So yes, if you have multi-unit buildings and you have multiple people in there, you're going to have multi-thing unless you have a management company running it.
Yeah.
I've never had a management company. It's always just
you're the guy
after my own stuff. So I'm the guy getting the phone calls when a roof's leaking or the tenant upstairs is making too much noise, or I've never personally owned purposely built apartment buildings. So like 8 units or anything. Mine have always been like houses converted into 2-3 unit places. So I don't have experience on that end. I do have some property management experience earlier in my life running those places, but there's a lot of phone calls because you have a lot of people cohabitating in the same building. So you're going to have headaches. So I feel for me at this point in my life, I just want less headaches.
Yeah, no, I hear you. We got plenty of those to go around mostly every day. So if we can minimize any of those, let's get rid of them.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to push all your buttons here today, but like rent caps.
Yeah.
What do you think of those? Do they help?
I think it helps. I think it helps a lot with different things. Again, landlords are going to hate me on this, but I think we're at a pretty high rent here in Halifax. I think the people that are kind of got woke about this are people that owned it rentals for a very long time and saw the market increase so quickly. They were like, I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. And I mean, I'm going to say that's their fault. They were asleep at the wheel. They had a place, they never increased the rent anytime. And I wouldn't be happy if I was a tenant and all of a sudden my rent went up by 30, 40, 50%, I'd be mad. So, and again, we all saw the news. We know why this all happened. There were some bad things done to some tenants and some news highlights that were not good for landlords all across. And when there's a problem, government cannot just come in and fix a single problem. It's a blanket effect.
Right.
So that's what happened. And yeah, I mean, rent control is in all kinds of other places. It's, and New York City has rent control. Landlords hate it. Tenants like it. So, I mean, I feel it's fine right now, but I mean, I'm not in the position where it affects me. So I'm just sort of speaking from the sidelines looking in. I don't, but I guess if I had a tenant that was paying, 50% under value of rent, I'd be a little, how do I capitalize on
How do I get some of that cake?
We're entrepreneurs. We want to make money. But when you take on the landlord role, you are taking on a responsibility for housing, residential housing for people. So
other people.
You have a responsibility there too. So I think it's a balancing act, and I don't think anyone's 100% right.
No, absolutely. And just kind of circling about like control and the government kind of stepping in. And it's something I was thinking about a little bit when they announced it, this like whole Airbnb registration. And I know people that are just not going to do it.
Right.
Like, I'm not a big fan of getting told what to do. So like, unless somebody's standing on my doorstep, like, I'm probably going to be hard pressed to do it.
I would not want to be the first couple of people caught.
Right.
Because you're going to get made an example of.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But my thing is, it's like, if you tell people that they can't Airbnb, say, the unit that they bought, that they made financial decisions on based on the short-term market.
Right.
What about if that guy goes, all right, well, I was going to short-term this and I was going to generate $3,000 a month out of it. So guess what? Rent's $3,000.
Right.
Do you feel that there's going to be an upward pressure here come April if people have to try and recoup some of their money? Because one, maybe they were in that situation. They paid 20, 30% over ask. They need to get that short-term money.
I think they're going to make less money.
They're going to make less money.
Because the rental market, I mean, we have a very strong rental market here with a low vacancy rate.
Right.
So if people are forced into that, it'll increase the vacancy rate. And, you might not get all that you want there. I mean.
So you don't see a big push on rent prices again because they're kind of restricting.
There's smaller players, right? That's the difference. It's not like these corporations or investors here that own buildings that are setting rent margins.
So we're talking a few 100,000, listings versus the rest.
Yeah. If there's let's say there's 100 people in Halifax that are now going to flip it over to long-term rental, they're not really going to make an impact, I don't think, on the cost of renting. Now, they may get people that'll pay them the rent they need or want, but I feel those people will have to be very on top of their numbers, and they're probably going to make less.
Yeah. So, shouldn't have probably paid that much over.
Yeah.
Maybe should have.
Whatever their situation is, they just have to kind of really look in and see where they're at and what they can do. But I would hate to be in that position if I bought a property that it's like, okay, this is going to be straight Airbnb and then that taken away from me. I wouldn't be happy with that.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I guess it's just kind of consolidated into the municipality and it's not so much over I know, Hubbard's is technically HRM, but, I don't think they're going to be giving too many people a hard time out there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because, there's tourism, all that stuff. I mean, let's be real. You want to go St. Margaret's Bay, Hubbard's area, Chester, I don't know. How far down does it go down the 103? Not as far as Chester, but Hubbard's at least. Right?
Yeah, you're right on it there. Yeah.
But, there's no hotels down there. You want to go have a little seaside getaway or whatever. So anyway, time will tell, I guess. But, a lot of rules, a lot of restrictions lately.
Yeah.
A lot of things.
I'm not a fan of rules, just to be clear. But I see why we're getting some of the stuff put on us.
Yeah. Well, people need some support and, the government, I guess, is trying to do what they think is best, or, at least best for them. But
yeah.
So for, we've already been talking here for, better part of an hour. Just to wrap it up for, any first-time homebuyer tips for people looking to navigate the market, you coming here, this spring.
Yeah, if you're a first-time homebuyer, I find the biggest problem with first-time homebuyers is they're scared to go get the information or get things checked on. I just say, go talk to your bank or your mortgage broker. They'll give you all the information. It's not going to hurt your credit. It's not going to put you in any way. And there's programs out there. There's, the down payment assistance program right now. There's a federal and there's one run through the credit union as well that can help. You can get 0% down. Yeah, you're going to have a higher interest rate, but you don't need a down payment and get you in the housing market. So there are options out there for people, but I think the best is just to rely on the professionals that are in the industry, talk to a mortgage broker, talk to a real estate agent. They'll give you the kind of the highlight of what you're looking at in your individual situation.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, a big thing is just, ask questions. I mean, asking questions are free.
Yeah. And I would say, like, me personally, I'm never really looking at the price tag. I'm kind of looking at what that fits into my monthly budget.
Right.
So if my house is $400,000, okay, what do I have to pay a month? Does that fit within my monthly budget? And if it does, then I can spend that kind of money, even though that sounds like a big number to me. Like, I'm going to pay $400 for this house. Wow. But okay, that's $1,500 a month. I'd be paying $1,500 a month in rent. So I'm ahead of the game. Yes, I'm going to use some of my money to invest, but you're investing in yourself. So I like to break it down into a monthly budget personally myself.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's what people really at the end of the day are looking at. Like, how much money's in the account at the end of the month? Did I make it? Right. Did I not? And like, where do I get the rest if I need more? So
exactly. Yeah. When you say you paid $400,000 for a home, technically you did, but you borrowed it. So you're basically, what am I paying a month to repay that
right? Because you didn't take it right out of your account.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for getting me into real estate. I wouldn't be here without you. And thanks for answering the phone when I need something. And
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Anytime.
See you out there in the jungle.
This is great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll see you out there.
Okay.
All right.